Well, first of all, let me thank the board tonight for this time. Tonight, I'm going to present the reopening plan that has been worked on at great length over the last couple of weeks. And I also want to thank all of those who've been very helpful in creating this plan and also assisting as we begin the rollout of it, which actually begins right now. Okay, Jamie, go right ahead. All right, so first of all, we wanted to share that everything that we have done, every discussion that we have had, and there have been many discussions, all of what we have done has really been about maintaining the health and safety of our students, but also our staff as well. Our students truly have been the center of the conversations that we've had, and they've been our focus point. And so, as you hear us talk tonight, I just want to be clear that we've done a lot of reflecting as a district and really thinking about how we might best provide the best educational services and program for our kids as we move forward. Now, as I get into the presentation board, I have a number of items that are there. I know that some of you might have some additional questions. I'm thinking that as we go through the presentation, a number of your questions might be answered. So at the end, certainly we'll have a good time for you to be able to ask additional questions. And you also did give me some questions prior to the meeting, and please know that I will be answering each of those questions this evening. Okay, Jamie, go ahead. So there are a lot of names here on this particular slide. We tried to get them all in to see if we could fit them, but we had a task force that we did bring together. In the state education guidance document, it shared that as you're creating this reopen plan, that you needed to have a variety of people with you as you were presenting, as you were coming up with your plan. And I believe, Nancy, you might have your microphone on. You might need to just turn that on mute. Um, so in terms of the task force, we had everyone from our administration to all of our collective bargaining units. We had several parents on. Zeta was one of our students. She was the student representative that was on. We had members from the community, the YMCA, First Steps UPK program. We had folks from the department, Oswego County Department of Health. We had medical doctors on, health officials on. So we had a lot of people that joined us. And all voices, we worked really diligently to make sure that all folks were heard. So let me, before I even begin to get into the report, I want to thank all of the folks. I sent out a recent letter to everyone to say thank you. It was a lot of work for over basically 2 weeks, and we had to come together pretty quickly. And I want to thank all these folks because they truly voiced their opinion. They shared their feedback. I had several who sent additional information to me or spent time with me on the phone talking about the plans that were going in. And I felt people really freely gave their thoughts and asked their questions. We had at one point even Zeta, who's on with us, who was sharing from a student's perspective what we need to think about in terms of online learning. And the members were really great. And so I just wanted to share that up front. We had a lot of different people on. I know that there were some questions about, could we have gotten even more folks? So in a 2-week time period, you try to get as many as you possibly can. And these folks were really great process. We had 34 people who were on the task force that helped to put together this reopening plan. And there was a lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of energy and effort that went into really coming up with this reopening plan. We only had 2 weeks to really think about the health and safety of all of our entire community. And so bringing this collective body together and working on this project really was honestly, it was really great to just kind of connect with all of these folks and just really have them being willing to assist the district as a whole. And together, I think we've come up with a very good plan that will help to keep our community healthy and safe while providing a high quality education. So some of the principles that guided the work that we did, you can go ahead, Jamie. There were a couple of principles that we really used to guide our work. And there were 5 of them specifically. The first was that we wanted to make sure that we ensured a safe learning and working environment for our students and also for our staff. Nothing more important to us than maintaining the health and safety of our students and our staff. The second thing was that we wanted to maximize family choice in the student learning format. And so in particular, for our K through 6 level students, we're offering at least 2 options One involves in-person instruction and also some online instruction, and the other one provides just for all online instruction. And then for our secondary students, 7 through 12, because of health and safety concerns, we have one option that's available. But we wanted to provide as much choice as we possibly could. So that was a guiding principle. The second was that we wanted to ensure that all of our students will receive instruction that meets state and federal standards and have all the necessary supports in place, including technology and connectivity, social and emotional wellness and health supports, and also the additional supports that would be needed, particularly for our kids with disabilities as well, and our additional special populations, such as students who are English language learners. The fourth guiding principle that was important to us was that we made sure that whatever we did, that we would provide training, time, and support, and also flexibility that might be necessary for staff to be able to prepare for a very successful reopening. And then lastly, we wanted to make sure that we provided proactive, clear communications with translations for those families that need to have things translated um, in a timely fashion for everyone. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had access to all the information about this reopening. So those were the guiding principles. Okay, Jamie. So a snapshot of just what's occurred since we've gotten kind of where we're at today. A couple things have happened. So our full committees met multiple times, and then we had subcommittees meeting multiple times as well. Details of our plans were solidified and defined, and we'll be presenting those this evening. The New York State Education Department opened up its portal to say, hey, listen, this is where we'd like you now to put your plans at. And last week, the the State Ed Department did allow for an extension. There were a number of districts who kind of felt like they just didn't have enough time. And with all of the health and safety concerns, districts kind of reached out and said, listen, this is just a bit much to do with basically 2 weeks time. And so the state heard those concerns, and they gave an extension to any district across the state who would like to take more time to solidify their plans. We were one that felt it was best to do so. I understand some people were doing things faster. Some people actually were at the same pace, or some were slower than we were. But we wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to make sure we had all the information together so we could solidify our plan and make sure that we maintain the health and safety of our entire community. All right, so also districts have begun to release their plans. Some have been very in-depth, some have not. But however they are designed, districts have begun to release their plans. We have also been thinking about the entire procurement process, and you're going to hear us talk a little bit about procurement this evening. We have begun to work on schedules, and some of that work is now occurring, quite a bit of it. And then PD and curriculum plans are also now being put into place since we've started this work. And we've learned, by the way, a great deal of information from our stakeholders. I have to tell you, I have really learned a lot about our community since I've been here. But watching and the interactions of our people together and listening to them has really taught me a lot. And one of the things I can tell you up front that I've learned is that people really care about this community and want to see the very best for our children, and they're very invested in the work that we're doing. Okay, Jamie. So you heard me talk about we learned a lot in this process. So we learned some lessons from our stakeholders, and there are really 6 categories of lessons that we learned. The first group dealt with instructional model. So what we learned from stakeholders is that consistent implementation of a school-wide instructional schedule is needed to promote equity, right? People wanted to make sure that we had a consistent schedule in place for all students. Second, more synchronous student learning was really preferred. People wanted to make sure that we had live interactive learning wherever possible. Third, increased access to live teaching experiences is needed to reduce family burden to support student learning. Our stakeholders also told us that increased social and emotional learning opportunities are needed in a virtual environment. We need to make sure that we're thinking about the whole child and addressing the social and emotional needs of students. The second group of lessons that we learned were around equity concerns. Particularly, one of the things that I heard a lot was that technology and connectivity really must be provided by the district to ensure that all students, wherever possible, can participate equitably in online instruction. Second, that the district plans must account for the disproportionate health and economic impact of COVID-19 on certain areas of our community, including how this pandemic affects students' ability to equitably participate in online learning, potentially widening the achievement gap amongst students. So there are real concerns about making sure that everyone had access to the learning that was going on through technology, because there was concerns around equity. Okay, Jamie. The third group of lessons learned was around communications, that we needed to make sure that opportunities for two-way communications and conversations with all stakeholders are in place, that these are vitally important when generating plans such as this and monitoring implementation. Also, we learned that frequent and consistent messaging from our schools are needed, with safeguards to ensure communication reaches all families. People were sharing with us that we really need to make sure that we communicate as much as we can, over communicate wherever possible, so that people will know what is happening as we get going in this whole process. Third, that verbal interpretation and written translations must be available for families who require them. So there are 5 different languages that I've learned that are present in our community that all require translations. So we have students speaking Russian, Chinese, Arabic. We have students speaking Spanish, but there are 5 different languages, and some of those families may have felt left out in the past if things that we put out did not have translations on them. So we wanted to kind of really make sure that we provided that support for all families. And then the fourth part was that return to school success stories also need to be shared as well, because there was a lot of great things, believe it or not, that happened throughout last year. There are many teachers who really were doing some really good things with kids and staff members. And so one of the things that we heard was that, we need to do whatever we can to share some of the success stories. Even though we're challenged through a pandemic, there were some good things that happened, and people need to see it in social media, in newsletters, in news releases, and in media outlets as well. The next group of lessons that we learned were around instructional practices. That staff needed dedicated time to plan and work in collaborative teams. This whole new process and way of learning really has changed the way that we do things. And so in order to do it and do it effectively and well, teachers needed time to be able to plan, but also collaborate. And one of the great things we heard that happened throughout last year was that people were collaborating not only within their schools, but across the whole district and grade levels. And that was very powerful for folks to kind of work collectively through the challenges that they were facing last year. Next, ongoing professional development is going to be needed to strengthen virtual teaching strategies. From everything from how to teach online to how to use Google Classroom to using gradebooks online, you name it. People need some extra professional development. Digital citizenship concepts and skills should be integrated as well into lessons. And then we were told that consistent inclusion of specials classes in elementary school and electives in secondary school is needed to support the whole child. Some of our children really blossom in those special area courses. And so when they are not there, it certainly challenges some of our kids who need those areas of support. And again, we're thinking about the whole child, basically. And then lastly, grading policies, whatever those will be in this next year, should be carefully crafted to appropriately motivate student engagement as well as we move forward in this process. So some very powerful lessons, as you can see, and information that we've learned that we've been able to kind of reflect on as we move forward. Also, in terms of technology and infrastructure, we learned that timely distribution of laptops and MiFi devices must be further strengthened to support student access to online instruction. So people need to be able to get those things in a timely fashion, that learning platforms and video conferencing must be able to support the consistent access of all of our kids. We have to make sure that regardless of where you're at, that kids can be able to access information online. And then students must have secure ways to access synchronous learning. Honoring students' individuality while maintaining security is also critical, such as reflecting preferred names within digital platforms. So we want to be careful when kids are online, that we are careful to monitor and also protect their identity when they're online as well. All right, the last group of lessons that we learned, again, kind of go to staff support. So what's clear to me, and I believe to all of our stakeholders who are involved, is that everybody, our administrators, our teachers, our support staff, they all should receive sustained professional development on a range of crisis-related issues, self-care, and productivity tools, right? And that this professional development approach, it really can't be kind of like the spray with a little professional development and pray that it works. It really needs to be an ongoing process that continues to evolve. And the district must ensure that all staff have consistent access to internet connectivity so that they may effectively support students, families, and the entire school systems as well. So our teachers need to make sure that we need to make sure that our teachers are supported and they have the right infrastructure when they are, wherever they're at, um, uh, providing the instruction that they're providing for our kids. So what will our program look like? So here's the program that we've kind of gone through that we've created. And I would share with you that, first of all, there is going to be some limited in-person instruction for social distancing. So we looked at a number of items. We first began with trying to see how could we get all kids in school. What would that look like? And then we looked at what would it be like to bring kids several days a week. We talked about half days. Do we bring them a group in the morning, a group in the afternoon? And as we started to really work through the state guidance, guidance, the New York State Department of Health guidance, and really started to go through the CDC information, it became very clear to us that all of what we were trying to accomplish would become very difficult to do in the environment that we're currently in right now. So before I kind of get into this slide here, for example, one of the things that we worked really hard on was trying to get all of our secondary students into our schools. So we tried to figure out how might that occur. And it became very clear, first of all, kids coming into our secondary schools, many of them our kids would have to change classes. And one of the things that you have to be really concerned about is making sure that when kids move from one classroom to another classroom, that you sanitize all of the spaces that kids are at, basically. And then you have to be careful with crowd control when people are moving through the hallways. And again, the sanitation was really big. So with 9 periods a day, or even if you did 4 periods a day or 5 periods a day, that being able to sanitize and keep the buildings safe with that process of sanitation between every class, it would almost be basically impossible. And then because of the numbers of kids that would need to come in, if you wanted to maintain a smaller number coming in, you'd have to have more opportunities for kids to be able to come. So when you kind of begin to put the schedules together and begin to think about all the sanitation needs, it was very difficult to do a number of the things that we wanted to do. We looked at other school districts to see what they were doing. And some of the schools that were able to do more of that are smaller, right? Smaller in size, smaller in number. We have 7 buildings with much larger sizes of our schools. So it was very difficult to do some of the things that some others may or may not be doing. So we were able to come up with our instructional model. And first of all, we were able to put in with some limited in-person instruction with social distancing. So the reopening schools plan offers our pre-K through 6 families the option of coming into school 2 days a week in person for instruction to our school buildings, with social distancing protocols being put in place, which are aligned with the CDC and the New York State Health Department and New York State Ed Department's guidance. In this model, students are able to attend classes at their school a minimum of 2 days a week, with additional offered remotely, virtually instruction happening. Students are also, they will be automatically enrolled. If we have kids who parents don't let us know what they're interested in, they would be automatically enrolled in this format of instruction, unless the parent contacts us and say, hey, listen, I wasn't able to get to you, but here's what we're interested in doing. But there is some limited in-person instruction in this model, particularly for pre-K through 6 families and students. Go ahead, Jamie. With all of our schools, all of our places of work, we have in place social distancing protocols. So our building's access, by the way, is going to be limited in accordance with health and safety guidelines, and visitors' access will also be restricted. We are going to maintain 6 feet separations wherever possible for staff and for students, and efforts are in place to limit mixings of groups of students as well when they're in school. Also with this program that we put together, buses will enact new capacity limits and seating guidelines per health and safety expectations. So for example, our 62 passenger bus, given the guidelines, can take up to 22 kids in them. And we would have to socially distance our students while on the bus. So we have definitely gone through everything, I would say, from transportation to the classrooms to our learning spaces to really make sure that we had proper social distancing in place. Okay, Jamie? We've also included in our program, or our plan rather, health protocols. So we will be monitoring in a number of areas per CDC and New York State Department of Health guidance. So for example, one of the ways we would monitor in a health protocol that would be put into place is a daily health screening. So we'll have a daily health screening form that will be actually online that caregivers and parents can use each day. And now that everyone will have, we'll talk a little bit about computers, but all of our homes, we're going to be putting computers in, making sure all of our kids have that. So because that will be there, what we're going to do is ask parents to actually go online each day and fill out a questionnaire to let us know if their children are asymptomatic before they kind of get to school. If we don't hear from parents or we don't see information, then we will certainly be in contact if we have any questions or concerns. Aside from that one health screening that we will be doing, buildings will undergo daily sanitation for high touch areas such as doorknobs and handles, areas that people will normally touch. And they'll be sanitizing using approved cleaning products. And then our schools will collaborate also with the district's office to rapidly and appropriately respond to any outbreaks in the communities or schools and to implement any necessary health and safety protocols consistently. So what's the educational program going to look like as a whole? Well, so for all of our pre-K, through 6 students, they will be able to attend school 2 days per week in person and 3 days a week virtually. Each classroom in the district will split into 2 groups. Half of the students will be what we call Group A, and they will attend school in person from 8:45 to 1:30 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday. And the other half of the group, Group B, will attend in person on Thursdays and Fridays, same time, 8:45 until 1:30. Whenever students are not in school, they will be provided with remote learning, and they can contact their teachers also for support on at 1:30 until 3:30. So if you're with the teacher on day A at 1:30 to 3:30, Group B. So if you're Group A with the teacher on on Monday and Tuesday, Group B can contact the teacher from the 1:30 to 3:30 time on the opposite day that they're actually with the teacher online. It should be noted that our elementary schools will be closed, by the way. Actually, all of our places will be closed for midweek cleaning and disinfecting on Wednesdays. Accordingly, no in-person learning will be happening on that day of the week. Everything will be online for Wednesdays. So what we wanted to do was make sure that we had multiple times throughout the week where we're doing some in-depth cleaning. So Wednesday is that day for every building to have some in-depth cleaning, as well as on the weekends, that Friday time, that weekend time, basically. So second, as a part of this plan, all of our 7 through 12 students will receive their educational program virtually 5 days a week. All secondary students will be given an instructional schedule to follow like they would basically in high school each day, and that schedule will be followed between the hours of 9 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. and students should log on to their classes at the specified time, which will be listed in their schedules. Also at Charles E. Riley, Fitzhugh Park, Kingsford, Minetto, we'll also have UPK programs. Our pre-K students will receive in-person instruction for half a day, 2 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. Also on the Wednesday, they would not be in program on that day. A select group of our students with severe disabilities and English language learner needs will receive their instructional program for 4 days a week, 1 day a week virtually. So we have some students that virtual learning there's no way that it would work for them at all. And because of their severe learning disabilities or disabilities in general, and or their learning needs, which may be much more significant, they would need much more in-person instruction. So that particular select group of students will be notified, and we will definitely be providing support for them at least 4 days a week and 1 day virtually if possible. We have some students in that group that virtual will just not work for. So they will be for sure working with those students on 4 days. And then there will be, I'm sure, some discussion with parents on that other 1 day virtually. And then for our students who go to CTE program courses, there will be some CTE offerings over at City BOCES. That will, at this point in time, the plan that we've received is that students who are in CTE courses will be going at least 1 day a week. The other days will be virtual for those students. And we're still awaiting some information from City BOCES around the exceptional education program and alt ed program. So they're still, my understanding is, working on some of those pieces around alt ed and our exceptional ed programs for kids who are there for self-contained special education programs, basically. But there will be some CTE courses, we know for sure. Our CTE courses will be offered there. Okay, so here's some sample schedules. And I'm going to invite Carrie and Heidi to just kind of come on with us right now and just walk us through. So here is a sample elementary schedule, what it would look like from 8:45 till around 3:30. Carrie, would you kind of just go through that with us, please?
Good evening. When you look at this, we were following the reopening guidance from the state that asked that we do the core content. So you'll notice that we have ELA, math, and science and social studies. So we want to make sure we get the core content in there. The other piece that the reopening guidance said was we had to provide 30 minutes of PE instruction. So you can see we have rotating specials. But we're going to start the morning at 8:45 to 9 with breakfast and our morning meetings. The other part of the state guidance is we have to fit the social emotional learning in, so the day can start off with morning meetings. Obviously, this is looks very tight, and it will flex as teachers are creating, or actually buildings are creating their own individual schedules. But this is really just a sample so that you can see that we would get the hour of ELA instruction in, along with intervention time for ELA, 30 minutes for our intervention specialists to be working with skill groups. Then we'll have our specials. We'll be rotating PE, art, and music. That will look different. It might be virtual on days. It might be the art teacher pushes in with individual lessons, that she has all the materials individual for each student. Then we'll go for math for an hour, lunch in the classroom. And then in the afternoon, it would switch to the science, social studies, or even some skill grouping for math if that has to happen. So this is really looks jam-packed. There has to be within all of this mask time where the students are allowed to take off their masks and breathe, so to speak. But the teachers will have time, will be able to kind of operate within the schedule to make sure they're getting the core content in, and we're making sure that special times is also incorporated into the elementary level.
Thank you, Carrie. Middle school schedule. Heidi, would you kind of go through that, and then the high school if you could too?
Of course. So in general, our 7-12 schedules on paper will look very similar to the types of schedule that your high school and middle school students would have received in the past. We will be starting the day at 9 a.m. in both of our buildings. Our 7 through 12 students will be learning primarily remotely, with the exception of our significantly disabled students, as well as our English language learners. We're providing some opportunities for them to have direct instruction with their teachers. Dr. Calvin mentioned that CTE should still occur. It might look a little bit different this year, but students will have that opportunity if they either are enrolled in or were planning to enroll in a CTE program at City BOCES. So it was very important for us to work together as a county to make sure that we provided that opportunity for our students who go out to City BOCES. We have support time built into both of our schedules. So it looks like kind of a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule at the high school. There will be synchronous, meaning online, real-time courses that the students will log into. We heard from a lot of parents and a number of students that even though at the beginning, the shutdown provided some time away from a strict schedule, it became difficult to keep our middle school and high school teenage children on a real schedule. So it was important for us to try to get folks back on track, if you will. So we're providing a half an hour, 30-minute periods. They'll have normal things in their schedule like they typically would, like a study hall or a lunch break. So you can see that they will have some break time during the day. We really tried to balance the notion of lots of screen time with the need for the instructional time. And then on Friday, we heard from our students that they preferred the opportunity to take it week by week, and then on Friday to be able to finish up that week's worth of assignments before the weekend, before the new week started on Monday. And we've been working with the counselors, the school social workers, the school psychologists to ensure that there is plenty of time built in for social emotional health. We've talked a lot about like an opportunity on Friday called Finish Up and Breathe. This is where teachers, counseling staff, other support faculty will have a chance to have small group instruction, connect with individual students, and connect with larger groups.
If you can show the high school sample schedule, Jamie, go ahead to the next slide, please. Right. And so, you know, what we've done basically is we're doing kind of like basically students will have a schedule like they normally would in school, and they'll need to get up and get online, and they go to all of their classes, right? And what we've done is we built in some time. We've monitored the time a little bit so that we would be careful around screen saving time. We are being online quite a bit. We heard from our students that there was a little bit of concern with being online so much, as well as from some of our teaching staff. So we reduced classes to 30 minutes apiece, but we did try to maintain and give them some continuity and consistency around scheduling. So we have a 9-period day. And basically what's happening is the learning will continue to go as it typically would, basically in a regular school day. So there's not as much downtime. Our goal is to really get kids on, get our staff on, and get folks working and moving together throughout the year in a very consistent, methodologically sound way as we kind of pretty much move forward. So you can see all of those different schedules there. So in terms of preparing, also what we wanted you to know, so we've got schedules pretty much lined up as to where they're heading, but also we wanted to let you know that we were also preparing for changes that might occur. So in our plan, we put in a section of the plan that deals with what happens if we start to have some real difficulties. For example, if we start to have some public health data that comes back that demonstrates to us that there's a real big spread happening in our area and we need to be very concerned. If we find out that our staffing structure is becoming pretty challenged and we can't maintain or hold on or really produce the staffing that we would need to kind of move forward. The backup plan is for any kind of challenge that we have is to go basically pre-K through 12 fully remote. And we would enact that, of course, after communicating that with our staff, our students, and our families. And that really is the backup plan if health conditions or staffing issues pretty much warrant it. And we would certainly be sharing that with the board way in advance as things are kind of evolving, basically. Okay. Some additional information that you should know, board, that we put into this plan is that in terms of technology, after hearing some of the learned things that we've heard and also reviewing the state ed guidance, one of the things that we said that's really important is that we want to make sure that in support of this educational plan, that the district will provide one-to-one technology for all of its students K through 12. So this includes a computer and Wi-Fi mobile hotspots for all of our students who need them. So the technology is going to be distributed to students prior to and throughout the school year. So any student that needs one-to-one technology or Wi-Fi, what we're going to do is we would like to get those items for kids, make sure that they have them in place. And that we found last year was basically a true barrier that some families had access, but some didn't. So we'd like to remove the barrier and make sure that we get everyone a computer and a Wi-Fi spot, but also not only our students, but also our staff too. If there's concerns, folks would be able to go sign out, Chromebook or a laptop, and also Wi-Fi mobile if they don't have it. again, making sure that we can provide access for everyone. The second thing that we worked on was also extracurricular activities, and we're still working on this now. The district wants to be able to make sure, again, that we're meeting those social and emotional needs of all of our students. And so we will be offering some virtual extracurricular activities for kids. All of the extracurriculars that we can offer online for our students, we would like to offer those for our kids. So, extracurricular clubs at the secondary level, we want to make sure that kids have those opportunities. Our secondary administrators are going to be reaching out to parents to inform them of those offerings as they begin to start the year. You should also know that with respect to athletics, the New York State's Public High School Athletics Association has determined that all interscholastic sport teams at this time have been placed on hold. We've had people already reach out to us about what's going to happen with the sports programs. Right now, everything is on hold. And this means basically that all sporting contests and practices are canceled at this time. Should this change, the district will certainly make sure that we contact our parents and inform them of this as soon as possible. The marching band season has also been canceled. We received notice as well that the whole entire the marching band season, not only for us but across the entire region, it has been canceled at this time. Go right ahead, Jamie. In terms of transportation, the district is going to be providing safe transportation for all of our students who will be attending in-person instruction. The district's transportation department will be contacting the parents and their guardians to clarify transportation arrangements. And again, there will be social distancing in place on our transportation that we provide. With respect to the YMCA before and after care, so we do know that some of our parents are going to need before and after care. The YMCA has agreed to partner with the district to provide before and after care. In the past, it was only provided at 3 of our school buildings. Now we're going to be providing it at 5 of the elementary school buildings. And given the need to maintain the health and safety of our students, childcare services before and after school will now be offered by the YMCA, again, as I said, by all 5 elementary schools, and all social distancing and health department recommendations will also be maintained while students are in the programming for the YMCA. Should also be noted for parents who are watching us that there is a cost for YMCA programming, and those costs are paid directly to the YMCA. So we will be offering that as well for parents as well. Okay, go ahead, Jamie. In terms of food and nutrition services, we will continue to offer breakfast and lunch for our students. Breakfast and lunch, by the way, will be provided in classrooms instead of in cafeterias. So there's concern in the guidance about gathering students in cafeteria areas. So we will be bringing the lunches to our students and breakfast in their classrooms. And also, for those kids who are not going to be here receiving in-person instruction, feeding will be provided 5 days a week for those who are not in attendance at our schools. The program will take place at the high school, and we do have an area there that we can make sure that we can support all of our families at. We'll have that all set up. So we will be providing food and nutrition services at all of our elementary schools and also at the high school for everyone who is not in program on a particular day. In terms of health and safety, we really spent a lot of time around this area in our plan. And some of the highlights that we put into place where we wanted to make sure that the district, again, would be implementing social distancing in all areas, including transportation. One of the things that is going to be required that parents should hear is that masking is required. Everyone who comes into the buildings will have to basically have masks on. Now, if there are some extenuating circumstances, and we know we may have a couple of students who have those circumstances, there would need to be a doctor's note that's sent to the school, and then we would kind of go from there. We're creating the appropriate accommodations for those students to make sure that not only that student, but everyone else is safe with respect to the masking piece. But we are asking people to come in with masks on. There will be plastic separators in place. Barriers are being procured even as we speak to make sure that we do have some separators in place for students, but also for our staff members. You know, we have parents who will be coming in, visitors coming into our buildings, and so we want to make sure that we have barriers in place, plastic barriers in place, to ensure the health and safety of our staff as well as our students. Signage is also being put into place in all of our schools. We have signs that have already been created by the CDC and also by our local BOCES for all of our districts. We will be, signage is already being posted, and we'll continue to be posting signage up that will send the message around our health and safety protocols that we have now put into place. We have also put into place containment areas for each of our places of work and schools. Each of our schools will have identified areas where if we have concerns that someone may have some concerns around COVID-19, there is an area that will also have social distancing in it and separators in it that folks can be contained at, that they'll be contained at, our students will be contained at until someone can come and pick the students up. There will be daily temperature checks. We are working on right now the temperature check protocols. So what we'd like to have in place is before kids actually get on buses, there will be someone there to take a temperature check. And then also, if you're not on a bus, before kids enter the buildings or staff, there will also be people in place to do temperature checks, as well as ask those surveying questions if people had not returned the surveys prior to coming to the buildings, parents that is. Parental surveys, again, will be completed each day online. And if we don't receive the survey back, then principals and staff will know those are folks that we need to contact before kids get into our buildings. Sanitation and disinfection will occur daily. And then again, we'll have a deep cleaning midweek, but also at the end of the week as well. And then students will also not rotate to other classes to ensure the health and safety of not only themselves, but our entire staff and our visitors. So instead of students rotating to other classes, staff will be rotating where there are rotations that would be needed. We also have put into place protocols around contact tracing. So it's going to be very important for us, and we're going to work diligently to make sure we keep accurate attendance records of our students and our staff members. We are going to be ensuring student schedules are also up to date to make sure that we know where kids are at all times. We will be keeping a log of any visitors, which includes the date, the time, and where in the school they visited, in addition to their name and contact information. And we'll be assisting local health departments in tracing all contacts of individuals at school in accordance with the protocols, the training, and the tools provided by the New York State Contact Tracing Program. We will also be maintaining confidentiality as required by federal and state laws and regulations while doing the contact tracing. Aside from this, we've also developed and created a communication plan, which the state guidance required that we had in place as well. Now, the goal of our communication plan is to be prepared to reopen our schools safely amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Our school district has and will continue to engage in communications throughout the pandemic using a variety of platforms to reach all audiences. With guidance from New York State and the Oswego County Health Department, it will be our goal to continue to develop, implement, and evaluate our comprehensive communication strategies to make sure that we're informing our stakeholders of the reopening plans and safety measures that are being considered as we move forward, and how we will actually make sure we ensure the health and safety of our kids in our environments. Some of the goals of the communication plan are, first of all, to provide information and updates regarding COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how they impact our schools. We want to provide that information in a very timely fashion. Second, we want to engage our school community and seek input from our stakeholders as we move forward throughout the year. And we want to make sure that with respect to communication that we are educating and informing and training our students, our parents, our staff and visitors on our new COVID-19 safety protocols using the CDC and Department of Health guidance. Some of our principles with respect to communication are to be transparent. We want our communications to be open and honest at all times. We want to be accurate. We want our communications to be understandable, factual and timely, and also strategic. We want our communications to be purposeful and linked to our mission and the goals of our district as well. So our target audiences are going to be our internal and external audiences. Internal, when we deal with internal, we're dealing with our staff and our employee associations and unions. And then external deals with our students, our parents and guardians, our Board of Education, our departments of health and local community partners, our component school districts, our visitors. We want to make sure that people are really getting information. So we have listed all of these stakeholders as as an audience that we want to connect with. And how will we reach out to folks? Well, we're going to be using our district website. In fact, tomorrow you'll start to see a lot of information on our website. We'll be using Web Alert, our Web Alerts system, emails, text, our mass communication system, School Messenger, our school social media, our Facebook pages. We also have an Instagram page that we'll be using. We'll be using our building signage that will be posted all around all of our schools, the district's newsletter, the Palladium Times newspaper, WBUC television station, and also we'll be doing some town virtual hall meetings. We'd like to actually have one of those meetings on next week. And the goal is to make sure we get as much communication out to our community as possible. Some additional communication information can also be found on something that we've just put together. We will also have a COVID-19 hotline. So people who have any questions about COVID-19 or some concerns, they may have some health issues that they want to talk through, they can contact us at the number here, which is listed 1-315-342-2050, and ask to speak to someone around COVID-19 concerns. We also have a web page, and that address is there and will be up on our website as well, that folks can go to and find information. And we also have identified 2 people who will be our school safety officer, and those folks will help to answer questions, health-related questions, and that is Dr. Robert Duffy, who is the Director of Student Services, and Christina Chamberlain, who is our District Health Service Coordinator. Okay. Go ahead, Jamie. Okay, so we have, and again, that number is 341-2050 for that hotline, by the way. So we had some questions that we wanted to answer that I know our board members had, and we want to kind of go through those and just share some answers to those questions. Go ahead, Jamie. All right, so one of the questions that we got said, will we have enough thermometers to complete temperature checks, and who will check temperatures? So we believe that, yes, we will have enough thermometers in place. We've already ordered 110 thermometers, and we'll have specific staff that will be designated to take students, our parents, teachers, and visitors' temperatures. Logistically, we will have some done before kids get to school, prior to riding on the buses, and some at the schools when kids arrive. We'll also have people in place at all of our other sites as well. So we have a warehouse, we have a district office, so we'll have people in place as well to do temperature checks there as well. To assist with backups, with drop-off, we will have 3 doors also to assist us with these temperature checks. So at each of our school sites, we will have areas where kids can kind of get through to help move people along through the temperature checks. So there's an area where kids who are being dropped off can go into schools. We'll have an area for our walkers who are coming to school, and we'll have an area for parent drop-offs where we can do temperature checks there as well. How will we handle class movement? Well, we will have a very limited movement throughout the day, so folks know that right up front. Students will be staying in pretty much one classroom throughout the day. Students will be asked to follow signage that is posted in halls, and that will also be located on floors. Left and right separations, directionals, will be on our floors to help students with movement, and we'll have 6 feet markers in hallways, and staff will monitor lines and assist students when moving in hallways using social distancing at all times. What's the plan for students? Here's a question about what's the plan for students that demonstrate inappropriate behaviors? Some kids may refuse to wear masks, or some could become aggressive, or some may touch others' belongings. So one of the things that we find really important, and we really view our staff, our teachers really as experts of their classrooms. And so what we're going to do is ensure that we have some proactive measures in place where teachers are really talking to kids about expectations around behaviors. We want to be proactive rather than reactive. And we're going to really rely upon our staff to implement classroom management and strategies that will help kids to basically make sure they're demonstrating those appropriate behaviors. And where needed, parents and administration will become involved when that becomes necessary. But we really will work with our teachers to make sure that we have kids doing the things that they're supposed to be when they're in school. Can students and staff wear face shields, or do they have to be cloth face coverings? And can they wear their own, or does the district provide them? So staff and students will need to wear masks while in school. Face shields should be worn with mask necessary. So the face shield, really, we found out from research, it still has a way for droplets to kind of come out the side of the face shield. And really, for the maximum protection, what people are asked to do is wear the mask and then the shield. So folks should really have the mask with the shield on when they're in school. Staff are going to be allowed to wear their own mask. However, if there is a problem with the mask, like they don't cover folks correctly, or the mask breaks, or there's some real issue with it, we are prepared to offer and provide staff and students a mask just to make sure that they are all set. One question asked, are hand blowers going to be disconnected and and paper towels used? Yes, hand blowers will be disconnected and paper towels will be used in our schools and in our buildings. What cleaning will teachers be responsible for during the day? So our teachers are not going to be responsible for deep cleaning of our classrooms, right? We have folks who will certainly be doing that. With that said, we all work together. We're all a team here. And our teachers will certainly be given, as they typically are, a supply of hand sanitizer, wipes, disinfectants to utilize. I could imagine a scenario where some of our kids will finish their lunch and need to wipe off their desk. Well, teachers will have things that they can kind of give to kids. But the deep cleaning part, we have some folks who've been trained in that, and we will let them do that deep cleaning piece there. How will math manipulatives be cleaned after use? And will students be using iPads or books? How will they be cleaned? So yes, kids will be using iPads, well, not iPads, but Chromebooks is what we're thinking. And I'm sure that from time to time they will be using their books. But you should know that whether it's a manipulative, an iPad, or books, what we're going to be doing is restricting materials that kids use pretty much only to themselves. There will be no sharing of materials. Kids will have a bin that they can store their materials in at the end of the day. And teachers, wherever possible, will do demonstrations, with manipulatives or items. Again, none of those instructional materials will be shared, and appropriate staff will work to clean items where necessary. With the AA and BB schedule, with 2 days in person and 3 days remote, how are teachers continuing teaching curriculum? Whole group, or as it was at the end of last year? So teachers will continue to teach the curriculum that is aligned to the standards and in person and also remotely. And this year, teachers will be assigned students and they will be responsible for their learning. At times, teachers may teach whole group, and other times they may be assigned to do small group or one-to-one, depending upon the student's needs. Will the faculty teaching virtually be required to be in buildings? So yes, we are asking all of our staff to come to our schools to report each day to provide instruction 4 days a week. On Wednesdays, our staff will be providing instruction from home due to the deep cleaning that will be occurring. One of the reasons why we asked our staff to come is, all of their materials are in the buildings. They are able to kind of, their surrounding is there. Anything that they would need would be right at their hand's length. But also in terms of the internet being able to support our staff at any time, we wanted to try to make sure that that was possible. So we are asking folks to come to the buildings each day to provide instruction 4 days a week. If families choose to complete remote instruction, what staff will be responsible for it? So a teacher will be assigned, and we will know more once we know who is actually going to be returning to school from who is not. But each of our students will be given a teacher who will be working with those students remotely. So how will AIS reading and math work? Can these teachers take a classroom as long as they continue on their tenure track? So AIS reading and math teachers will be pushed into classrooms, and they will be providing support for students either in person and or online. AIS teachers should be teaching in their tenure areas. So just so it's clear, reading teachers, AIS reading teachers, that is a designated teaching area, a teacher of reading. Math AIS is not a designated tenure area. So persons can be used to teach other classrooms like a regular classroom. However, with that said, we have AIS reading and math in place because of how students actually demonstrate on state exams. And we have Title I dollars that are actually designated that are connected to those actual positions. So we really want to make sure that our AIS staff are providing that academic intervention support for our students. And our expectation is that they will be working with kids who need those supports in place, and providing that reading instruction or that math instruction to remediate students. And more now than ever, given some of the challenges that happened across the country around instruction, we really want to make sure that those academic support teachers are in place to support kids. Will cafeteria space be utilized as classroom space? At this time, we're not going to be using our cafeterias as classroom spaces. We do not really need the space at this time for instruction. We believe that we can do pretty much everything we need to in our classrooms. However, you should know that some of the cafeterias may be used in the future in this manner, right? So it really depends. Once we get going, I'm sure we're going to learn a couple of things as we get moving ahead. And so we may need to use those spaces. Some of the cafeterias, by the way, may be used before and or may be used for after and before care. So we want to be careful with those spaces because, again, we've got groups of kids going in, we've got to clean those spaces. So we wanted to kind of be careful around that. Also, some of those areas may be used for storage. We are right now finding areas to put. We had to pull a lot of desks out. We had to pull many of our teacher supplies out of some of those classroom areas to support what needs to occur. So we're running out of space. So we may use some of those spaces as we pretty much move forward. Okay. How will specials work K through 6? How will PE work in 7 through 12? So all specials will be provided in a push-in manner. Folks will be going online, working with kids as they would normally during the school day, just virtually. With respect to PE for 7 through 12, it will also be provided online with a focus on wellness as well. So everybody's all hands on deck here. Everybody's working with their kids in all content areas. They will have assigned class times, and the expectation is that they would be online providing support for their students. How will we serve lunches at the high school and our middle school? Will all food staff be working? So at this time, we anticipate needing all of our food service staff. So we have 5 elementary schools that will be having students being fed at them. Also at the high school, our kids with severe disabilities will be fed. And then we have students who will be on full remote instruction from the elementary schools. And our middle and high school students, we know will be on full remote instruction. So we will need staff to help distribute food at the high school level. So at this time, we are expecting that we're going to need all of our food service staff at this time. Will we use the part-time school monitor? What will we use the part-time school monitors for? Well, we may need to use our monitors to assist with a variety of tasks. Some of those tasks could include temperature checks, monitoring areas, escorting folks from place to place, or arrival and drop-off, assisting with those kinds of things. So we may need our monitors in a variety of ways. However, we know that we have to make sure that we keep within contractual limits with respect to utilizing them. But folks may be assigned to tasks that traditionally they may not have been assigned to in the past. So everyone is important. We're all in this together, and we're going to utilize everybody to the greatest extent possible. We have to all work together, so we're going to need everybody on deck to help and support. Do we need to add additional part-time custodial staff, and who will be in the buildings on the deep cleaning Wednesdays? Will there be a deep cleaning on the weekends? So we do not need additional custodial staff at this time, right? So once we get started, we'll kind of see how things are going, monitor, and if we need to come back, we'll certainly come back and talk with the board about that. We believe we should be able to do this with the existing staff that we have now. We will monitor this need as we move forward, and on Wednesdays only, cleaning staff will be in the buildings to complete the deep cleaning. There will also be a deep cleaning on the weekends as well at all locations. What's the schedule for K through 6 students who opt for entirely online instruction? So they will have 4 days a week of instruction during the hours of 8:45 to 1:30 p.m. assigned to follow a cohort. On Wednesdays, they will receive additional instruction as assigned by their classroom teacher and or staff. So pretty similar. Everybody's getting that 4 days with the Wednesday as well, with some small groups or one-on-one kinds of instructional things. So on page 87 in the first paragraph, last sentence, it deals with 2.5 to 3.5 hours of synchronous and asynchronous instruction that will occur. Does this refer to student learning solely remotely? those opting for hybrid instruction, or both. Is that per day or per week? This refers to both groups of students, and this will be offered per day. For students who are opting for K through 6 hybrid model, and for those opting to go entirely remote, what does synchronous and asynchronous instruction look like? Will a K through 6 teacher be assigned to only one modality of instruction, or will they have to teach some students all online while teaching others hybrid? So Carrie, I'm gonna have you come on if you could, and just kind of go through those 2 bullets for us, if you would, please.
Okay, this really depends on what student population, what it looks like coming back, how many students are coming back in. One way we could do it is if all our students decide, well, the majority of our students decide in person, we would divide into cohort A and B and assign, we would call our remote learners cohort C. So if cohort A is receiving in-person instruction, they're in school that day, the teacher can utilize Google Meets to be doing direct instruction with cohort B, cohort C. They could be receiving that instruction at the same time and listening in, but it could be synchronous, but then also it has to be asynchronous, where the teacher then gives an assignment where the student goes offline for a bit, does an assignment. So it can look a variety of ways. If we get more remote learners, then we don't need as many teachers in the classroom for in-person, then we can utilize some of the staff to do nothing but remote learning to help build that. So it's really truly dependent on what our makeup is going to be when students come back.
Okay, so if grade levels don't have teachers not assigned due to low in-person enrollment, we can look at 1 teacher per grade level per building doing all remote learning. So it's really going to depend upon what our parents and guardians pretty much tell us. Okay. Will asynchronous and synchronous instruction be separate for teachers' planning and office hours? Yes, that will be separate. Yes, it will be. And then based on the feedback we got from our Guardian survey, so 37% of those who answered this survey said that our K through 6 would not send their kids back. So if enough parents opt to keep their children at home from day one, or if positive cases surface in an individual school and parents start to pull their kids, are there thoughts for a minimum capacity to convert K through 6 to all remote, less than 50% of children attending in person? Yes, there are, those thoughts are definitely there. This is a fluid process. And so in the preparing for the future shutdown piece that I talked about a little bit earlier, we do have a plan in place that if we start to see that we don't have enough staff in place, or majority of our parents are saying, hey, we'd rather keep kids at home, or if there's an outbreak, right, we will be ready to go full remote with respect to virtual learning for our pre-K through 12 population. Are K through 6 guardians being asked to commit to sending their child or not from day one, or can they switch between hybrid and remote after the year begins? So our K through 6 parents and guardians will be asked to commit to one of the 2 models that will be offered. However, they can switch whenever they want to with a different model at any time. So this will be basically a fluid process as well. We anticipate that we will find that some parents will say, I don't want to send my kids to school. But maybe once things get going and some of the kinks get worked out, they may change their mind and say, hey, I would like to send my child to school. We also anticipate the opposite, that some parents will be in school and then decide, I don't want to send, Johnny, or vice versa, basically. So they can change whenever they wish to change their mind. We just ask that parents let their administrative staff and their teachers know, and we will go from there. So the next question deals with basically drop off and how this is going to be managed, especially during bad weather. Will we have staggered dismissal, staggered arrival? And this is really concerned around congestion with both students and adults. So we will have some staggered bus arrival times. All of our buses will be staggered in terms of their arrival. But we'll also have, as I mentioned earlier, several ways for folks to be able to enter into the schools so that we can really relieve some of the congestion. And our goal is to make sure we have more than enough staff in place to assist us with the arrivals. We're going to be partnering with the local police to assist us with traffic drop-off, especially at Kingford Park and Riley. And our security and SRO staff will assist us as well with this whole process. And here's what we believe. So my hunch is that as we get started, it may take a little more time on the first couple days of school. But as we get going and people get used to the routines, logistically, as things start to roll out, we believe that this will end up becoming much more smoother each and every day. Logistics of each of the schools and how things are going to roll the logistics of how each of the schools are going to roll things out will be shared, by the way, with all of our parents by the school principals. How about labs for Regents courses? How will they be handled? So there is guidance from New York State Education Department, and our district is going to be following that guidance, those recommendations. Some of our courses will have virtual labs for Regents science courses. Heidi, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So the state put out some information that if you are either doing a hybrid or a remote learning environment, the 1,200 minutes that's required for a Regent Science course can be offered through virtual experiences. And I was glad to see that their focus is more on quality of the experience and an acceptable lab report rather than counting out the actual minutes. So if the teacher determines over the course of the year that the opportunities are equivalent to 1,200 lab minutes, then the student can meet that requirement.
Right. Thank you. What's going to happen with personnel at the high school and the middle school who are not involved in remote instruction? TAs, custodians, resource, DARE officers. So again, our goal is to try to make sure folks everybody's really helping and supporting with our kids. So some staff may be assigned or reassigned per contractual agreement to other service areas that maybe they weren't in the past. All staff will be busy and tending to the needs of our school community. So again, all hands on deck. We're all in this together, and everybody's going to be working together to make sure we maintain the health and safety of our schools and support our students. Okay. Children sitting in chairs for 5 straight hours, how is this going to work? There were some concerns again around behavioral issues. Is this going to be best for kids? And again, just for, as we all know, our kids do come to school now for longer times than that. We unfortunately, because we're in virtual learning or in-person learning, things have changed a little bit. But one of the things that I think is very consistent is we really rely upon our teachers to help us with the behavioral management of our students. And we're going to really rely on our teachers to make sure that things are going well and to give students also appropriate breaks in a very safe manner. So according to the guidance, we need to be able to give kids breaks, right? We know that kids are going to need that. And I believe our teachers who are experts will be more than able to handle that and to work through that. And if they need support, we do have administrative folks who can certainly reach out and support them as well. Was splitting kids half day thought of? Shorter times sitting for students? Yes, this definitely was a consideration. As I shared at the beginning of the presentation, we looked at a number of models. And one of the things that we did think about was half days. The concern was logistically, it was not our best option. Why? Because, so first of all, you're talking about once they get to school, pretty much having like 2 hours worth of instruction. And by the time you get them in school, get coats off, get folks into their seats, get started with, getting breakfast out of the way, you're losing more and more time. So we thought it would be better to go with a larger chunk of time, especially given some of the learning timeframes that happened in the past. Like we want to try to maintain as much time as we possibly could while keeping kids safe. There were also some limitations with transportation and then also the cleaning concerns. You'd have to clean those buildings multiple times as kids left and the new group came in. So just the time elements of what would be needed, we were a little bit concerned about that. So we felt this would be a better option for our kids. How will we utilize all staff? PE, art, music, AIS, virtually teaching and rotating through their jobs, remotely or in person. Those faculty from the high school and middle school too, teachers' aides. And we pretty much have gone pretty much through this. So again, regardless of what schools folks are from or assigned to, they're going to be utilized to provide educational services to our students. Staff will be assigned to students and will be responsible for providing consistent instruction throughout the year. Some staff will teach students in person and online. Some staff will be assigned to teach students who are pretty much all online, right? Our music, our art, our PE and AIS folks will be providing support for all of our kids. Our teachers' aides will work with students and assist wherever needed, as outlined per contractual agreements as well. Okay. So other districts are doing 4 and 5 days in person. Have we looked at their plans to gain any insight or ideas? Yes, we exhaustively were looking at folks' plans. I mean, something would come out from one district A or another district B, and we were constantly looking to see what folks were doing. I will tell you, one of the things that we learned quickly was that this is kind of like building the airplane as you fly it, right? Everybody's trying to figure out how to best do this. There really was no one size that fit all, right? We really looked at a lot of different plans, but we felt that our plan that we have works best for our district. So again, you know, something that might work in a district that only has 400 or 500 kids would not, we felt a lot of those things wouldn't be applicable to our district with nearly 4,000 kids in it. It just, some of the logistics, it just wouldn't work best for us. I have to tell you, I've had a lot of surprises as I've looked at some of these plans, and I said to myself, how's that going to happen? I've actually reached out to some folks, and folks have reached out to us. So everyone's kind of trying to figure out what's going to work best for them. But we believe that this was the best option for us. And again, we looked at every option possible to maximize learning and get as many kids in as we possibly could. So how will students at City BOCES function? Can you walk us through a typical day of the life of an elementary, middle, and high school student? We can share with you right now in terms of high school, the information that we received is that they will be going to City BOCES at least 1 day per week for some in-person support and instruction. And then the rest of the time, they'll be on virtual instruction at this time. We are still awaiting plans around alt ed and exceptional ed programs. So we're not certain yet on that, but as soon as we get that, we'll share that information with not only you, but the entire community. Go ahead. Were more teachers involved in the planning? The list had a lot of school administrators, but teachers are the ones on the front line. Just wondering if there was more input from them. I only saw 2 teachers' names on the list. So let me just share, we weren't able to get all of our teachers in or support staff, but first of all, I just want to be clear, all of our employees really are on the front line. So our custodians, our clerical staff, everybody is on the front line at this time. Our transportation staff, our support staff, you know, everybody's pulling together here. All of the collective bargaining groups did have voice in this process. So, you know, I would let you know that ACTA leadership was well represented. The union president was there. One of her vice presidents was there as well. And all of our unions had folks at the table. And I would tell you that our unions were in connection with their folks because they were sharing with us the concerns that were coming from their folks. I know that several of our unions surveyed their staff and shared those results with me. We sat down a number of times. I sat down with at least pretty much all of the unions and had conversations around what are some of the concerns that are out there. Just last week, the last 2 weeks, I was on the phone and video conferencing with the ACTA leadership, gaining insight to try to make sure that there was enough voice in the process. I know that also we asked staff to give us feedback. We did a survey as well around how things went last year. We did get feedback from our staff. And so I would say staff were represented in the task force, even though we couldn't get all of our, you know, staff who may have wanted to be a part there. The unions did represent their staff, and I would say they represented them very well, and they certainly brought issues to the table. And I have kept the door open and said to all of the union folks, hey, if there are things that come up that you hear about, you know, come share them with me. Let me hear from you. Let's sit down and talk. And I have to say, they've been really great about that. I know ACTA recently put out a very positive note, I would say, to the entire group, and really kind of motivating the folks to, you know, we can do this, we can work through these challenges, and let's just prepare and kind of move forward. So I would say there has been ongoing conversation, and actually it's been a real pleasure to work with all of our unions as we've been working through this process. So I want the board to know that you've heard a lot in terms of the plan. You've heard questions and answers that you share with me. I also want you to know that there are some cost implications. In order to address the technology needs, there are some costs. So Nancy, you have, can we just put on mute for just a moment, Nancy? All right, there we go. So there are some cost implications. So we have to purchase some additional technology to make sure we have enough in place for every student to have computers and Wi-Fi spots. There is PPE that needs to be made sure that that's in place. We certainly can't have staff coming back without the appropriate PPE in place. And so to cover the needs, there is going to be a request for some changes around reserves. Really, whatever is not needed, by the way, with respect to that transfer, will also be returned. But there are some cost implications, which are pretty big, and not just for here, but really across the entire state in terms of districts. Nancy, you want to talk about some of those costs there for a moment, if you could?
Certainly. You'll see in the board agenda under finance that we are going to transfer $863,000 from the unemployment reserve over to technology lines so that we can provide one-to-one devices and hotspots for students. We have ordered over $100,000 worth of PPE. We're still ordering more through BOCES. And as Dr. Calvin had said, you know, at the end of the year, if we do have a budget surplus, those funds will be used to replenish reserves at the end of the year. So there is a plan and for the purchase of all of the computer equipment.
And also, one of the things you should know, board, is that so we're purchasing these items, as Nancy kind of talked about, through BOCES. So as you all know, maybe the newer members may not be as aware of, but when you go through BOCES, the big help with that is that is aided. So a portion of what you spend, you're able to kind of get back. So we think that would be a good way to kind of gain a lot of this technology, the PPE, those things that would be needed as well. But to just make sure that we have things in place, that's what we're looking to kind of work through this evening in terms of cost implications. So as we kind of move forward, there are some things that we are just all focused in on, and I'm winding down on my part here in terms of presentation. You know, this is a pretty complex, comprehensive plan. And as we move forward, we're really focused, right? What are we focused on? One, our students. Number one, we want to make sure that our kids get the best education possible. Second of all, we are focused on our schedules to make sure that all of this works and meets and flows smoothly. The procurement is a process. You know, the PPE and the technology, we're kind of like in the state of New York, we're kind of almost like what was happening with amongst the government, right? So we have people all over the state, the 700 plus districts that are trying to get PPE and technology, right? And so everybody's trying to get it, and there's some challenges, right? So the sooner the better, but we are working really diligently to procure both of those things. In terms of staffing, our goal is to make sure that we have all staff in place in the right areas and assigned appropriately. So we're working diligently on that. Our room setups, we are in the process right now of making sure we have furniture moved out so that we can provide the appropriate the appropriate social distancing. With professional development, curriculum development, and training, we are working already on putting into place all of those things for our staff so that way they will be ready when they come back for the school year to start. In terms of transportation, we're already routing things, getting some ideas to see what things might look like. So we could stagger in our buses when the school year begins. And we've already gotten signage designed. Some of those are in the process of being copied, and some have already started to go up. If you come to the district office, the education building, you'll see things already posted throughout the building. Communications to stakeholders. So one of the things that we're going to be doing after this meeting, starting tomorrow morning, we are going to be basically, it will feel like we're over communicating. I don't think we can communicate enough right now. So you will see things in the newspapers. You will see, in fact, there's a series of reporters who are watching this presentation tonight, but you'll see things in the newspaper. You'll see things on social media, you'll have robocalls that are going out. Why? We want to make sure people understand what's happening, what's going on. We will be using some survey tools to assist us as we move forward. So we want to know, what parents would like to see for their child, what they would need in terms of Wi-Fi or technology, and we want to know what those special needs are. So we'll be surveying our parents. We will continue to solidify any protocols. If there are policies that need to be changed, we will certainly be bringing those back to the board. And then we will be submitting our plan to the state. That plan will be going in tomorrow with any feedback, additional feedback that you might have for us, board. We'll be submitting that. We want to get that in. It has to be in by Friday of this week. And also the Department of Health will receive a copy of our plan as well. And then I want you to know that we're also going to be working on a Q&A document. We have that document pretty much ready here. So all the questions that the board asks will be in that document, and any questions that we receive from the public. On our website, we're going to have up tomorrow our plan. You will see a copy of the question and answer document. You will see the PowerPoint from tonight's presentation. Our hotline will also be up there, and there will be a place for folks to be able to give us questions. And what we would like to do is have a rolling document for questions and answers for our public, and you will see that up as well. And then we will be implementing our communication plan that we talked about earlier with integrity to the greatest extent possible. So these are all focus areas and things that we're going to be really working on. To add to that, go ahead, Jamie. Some additional considerations that we're going to be working on is supporting our staff. How will we kind of do this? Well, one of the things we want to do is ensure that all staff, instructional, clinical, operational, administrative, have the resources so that they feel safe and comfortable when returning to the workplace. So again, that personal protective equipment, we want to ensure that staff have the necessary the PPE resources in place, regardless of what it is. We'll be working on health and wellness. We want to provide staff with support and resources to address any personal health and wellness needs. And so folks who have needs can reach out to the Human Resources Department, and we will work diligently to make sure that we're addressing those needs. Go ahead, Jamie. In terms of professional development, we will certainly be making sure that we have all those pieces in place so that teachers and our staff have all the training and support that they need to be successful. Support for families. So another goal that we have set into place is to ensure that all families have the tools, the resources and supports to feel safe and comfortable when kids do return to school. So elements of this family support model are included through flexible schooling options. So parents can choose which option they want for pre-K through 6. Also, food service. We want to make sure that we continue to provide food service for our kids. Language services. We want to make sure that we have all the translation of documents in place so that parents can understand what's happening and occurring, regardless of the language that their native language. We will have training and support in place, not only for our staff, but also for our caregivers, so that they can understand what their roles are in supporting their children with academic success. And then again, the technology support. So our next steps, our communication piece will be rolling out very robustly tomorrow. And then our plan would be submitted with any feedback you have. We will be planning to post all that information on the website as I shared with you earlier today. And we will continue to provide ongoing communications to the board and our community. Our goal is to stay in touch, very much so in touch with you as a board. We want to make sure that you know what's happening, what's going on, and our community. We want to keep them informed as well. Okay, Jamie. So that's the information I have. I gave a lot of information. I want to thank you, board, for allowing me the opportunity to get through all of that. Any additional feedback that you would have that you want to make sure that we can answer for you tonight or take in tonight from the board?
I just have a quick, Pam had asked it in the little group chat here and Carrie answered it. Carrie, if you could just explain that to the families.
When we set up the cohorts for AA or BB coming Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, we're going to make sure that families stay together so that no family will be coming on, say, Monday, Tuesday, and then the siblings will come Thursday, Friday. We're going to ensure that all families get on the bus together. That way, transportation and being in school at the same time. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Came from a parent, not I have two other questions. People without transportation, how are they going to come to the high school to pick up food?
So, Dean, you want to kind of share a little bit about what's happened in the past? If they don't have transportation, how they've been able to come and grab food, basically?
Yeah, during our closure from March until the end of the year, as the board knows, we had not only 3 remote food distribution sites at the Oswego High School, Riley, and Minetto Elementary, but we also had support service organizations from around the community that were doing home deliveries. And we also did some remote deliveries in some more remote areas of our district, trailer parks and other areas across the district where we did some deliveries. We also had building principals who will be more heavily engaged, particularly at the elementary level now that we're going back to actual instruction with the AABB schedule. But we had volunteers, we had principals who were making a lot of home deliveries in terms of meals. So the principals worked to identify families that weren't coming to the feeding sites, and they made contact with those families and helped determine how we could best help them get those meals.
So we'll continue in that fashion, basically.
Great, thank you. Another concern I had, when you said that parents or guardians could choose back and forth if they wanted to do remote or go to school, I see a can of worms that, 1 week they might want this and 1 week that. That sounds really confusing to the teachers. Could we not do it quarterly?
Well, technically, you can't really tell a parent that, right? So legally and technically, you can't do that.
Okay.
So, we saw some of that on some other folks' web pages or their plans, and we thought, you can't do that, right? You can't deny the parent that choice. So would that be a very, as I said, fluid process? It might become a fluid process, and we are preparing for that scenario, right? My hunch is, again, it could be one of 2 ways, right? So once people get started and see that things are actually okay, we could have parents saying, I'm okay, let's send more kids back to school. Or it could go the opposite way. If concerns continue to rise, not only locally, but across the nation, we could have parents saying, no, I'm not doing it. I started, but I'm changing. So we have to be actually able to respond at whatever way the parents kind of go. And we'll be able to, we're preparing to be able to respond for those. Good question though, Pam. Great question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer and clearing it up.
Sure.
I have a question about the technology part of it. I mean, just in just the beginning of the meeting and us having a hard time getting that going on, and that's happened before where our internet goes down. I guess I'm concerned how this is, we're talking about a virtual reopening program and we had a hard time with the YouTube channel getting on there. What's going to happen? How are you going to do, 7 through 12 every day? Do we have the technology, that capacity to do that with, and like on a Monday when all the kids are online and all your teachers are using the, in the buildings online?
Right.
Just can you
Good
me, I guess.
Good question, Kathleen, right? So, the world of technology is not always predictable. Sometimes you think it's going to work well, and all of a sudden you may have a bump in the road. But I can tell you that Jamie and his team are working diligently, and they will have a help desk in place. They'll have some folks in place to answer questions from families. And, Jamie, by the way, one of the things that we are going to be basically coming back to the board around is also the staffing of Jamie's department. So, he's operating with the same staff that he had a year ago, and, with all of this new technology out there. So we may need at least 1 to 2 people additional. We believe that we will. And so I'm just giving a heads up right now around that to help and assist with that. But, do we anticipate that there may be some challenges as we move forward? There might be, Kathleen, there really might be. And we'll respond accordingly depending on what the needs are. But I think one of the things that will help us with some of the concerns around technology. So first of all, it might help to have folks in our schools because we have an infrastructure in the school that's pretty robust in terms of our staff, right? but also, you know, we're going to get some Wi-Fi that we believe is a little more reliable. You know, there's varied Wi-Fi at home, but some of the stuff that we will have will hopefully be able to do a pretty good job. And we'll just it'll kind of be an ebbs and flow kind of situation, right? We're going to have to see how things go, and wherever we need to mitigate or switch or change or correct, we will do that. I will tell you that Jamie is gearing up. He's quiet tonight, but I know he and his team have been really gearing up. We've been in conversations about it, and it'll be a lot of work, but we're going to be up for the task, and we're going to do the very best we can with it. Will it be perfect? I would say no, but will it be as close to perfect as we can get it? Absolutely. We're going to work really diligently at it, and that's not just a Oswego issue. That's across the whole country, as I'm sure you're aware.
Okay, and then I just have another question. How are you addressing, I mean, there are valid medical issues that people cannot, students, kids, you know, with asthma, heart conditions, sensory issues, trauma, that they cannot wear a mask. How are you addressing those issues?
Right. So each one is individual. It depends on the information that we receive back from doctors, right? So there will be some accommodations, I'm sure, that will be in place. It really depends on the information that we receive. So one of the things that we will do is, you know, if we get kids who, you know, just can't wear masks and there's some real safety concerns, right? Then we'll have to make sure that everyone else who's working with that child, if they're in person, are safe, right? In addition to that particular child too. And, you know, we'll have to, again, evaluate each situation. There are some students who, you know, may come and can't wear a mask and they may need an alternative setting. We'll have to figure that out one step at a time. But each case that we get, we'll look at individually, right? So again, one size won't fit all. So we'll have to wait till we get the information back, and we will go through them one at a time, basically. It will be. This is, you know, these are some of the things that took us a while to make sure that we put this plan together, because it's pretty comprehensive. There's a lot to think about. And one of those things that we did spend a lot of time talking about was what happens when kids come, or adults who can't wear a mask. How do we mitigate that and work through that? And there's a lot to think about. So when people are thinking about sending kids back, these are some of the things I'm sure that will be on their mind, and you should know it's on our minds as well too. We're just going to have to evaluate them one at a time. And we will utilize our doctors and our nurses and our staff as we kind of move forward with that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Dean and Mathis, knowing that technology is really going to be the key here to success in having a school year as we envision that, I'm hoping that we put something in place, some extra support as quickly as possible for Jamie and his team, so that he's not going to burn out on us.
Right. Well, Dean, you want to say something first, and then I can respond?
No, I think you just planted the seed with the board a few minutes ago that you're going to be asking for additional staff.
Yeah. And I think we should do that sooner than later.
If the board would have no disagreement with that, then we will certainly move in that direction. Would that be okay with everybody?
Yes, it would me.
Right.
The reason that it wasn't on the agenda for tonight was because it didn't have an opportunity to go through committee.
Uh-huh.
But yes, we will be working on that for sure, right? That we know that we need at least an additional, really two people, just to handle the infrastructural needs and, you know, the devices when they break, when they, you know, we need somebody to help us out with that. And then the online help, support with parents, support with students. It could be overwhelming for the team that's currently in place. We will need those extra hands, board.
Yeah, I agree.
I might add this. We have some really, really talented librarians across the district. We haven't had a lot of conversation about the role of librarians yet, and they don't come up in the plan so much. But librarians are critical with the implementation of not only our technology, but the educational piece for how students will manage that technology. So I think that section of our teaching staff is critical.
We will reach out to them as well. Yes, excellent point, Dean.
Just another quick question. So when you're saying that you've got 2 in-person days for students, K through 6, and then you're offering the 3 other days or 2 other days, how are those mandatory days or are they just being offered?
No, those are, go ahead, Carrie, you want to say something? Go for it. Okay. No, they need to be on online. Those are not optional, right? That we have an educational compulsory piece that we have to make good on. Those are, parents need to be on, kids need to be on, staff need to be on. Our expectation is that kids are, learning. Across the country, kids have really, unfortunately, we've lost some things, and everybody's, I think, trying to do the very best that they can. But what we need to do is make up ground wherever possible. So our expectation is all those times people are online, we want to really give them as much support as we possibly can.
So I have a question about the K through 12 teachers. I think it's great that we're offering them the facilities, the buildings that they need it. Technology is important, obviously, when you're studying remote. But I'm wondering, for those teachers who have the ability to do the technology from home and have the preference, will we be working with them or will they be required to be in the building?
So we're going to start with having everyone in the building to the greatest extent possible, right? So if people have some, special health concerns or issues, then they can apply for an accommodation. Heidi, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. A few weeks ago, I put out a brief memo on a complex topic with FMLA traditional, FMLA plus, which is under the Families First Coronavirus Act that the federal government passed, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we have started, Melissa Sorrell and I, we've started the interactive conversation that's required with some of our employees regarding their concerns, talking about what some options might be, because each one is very unique and individual. So we will come to a point where perhaps we have some folks who qualify for certain types of leaves, and we would hope to have a collaborative discussion where we can land somewhere that's good for everybody.
Right. I mean, the greatest extent possible, we're going to try to, work with our staff. Our goal is to really support each and every person as while assisting our students. So, that's another situation that we will one at a time as people come and share information with Heidi, and they do need to do that. They need to come and talk with her. We will work through matters with folks, basically.
Thank you.
Yes, great question. Thanks, Jim. All right, any other questions from the board? Well, I want to again say, nearly 10 years of doing this, I have never seen anything like the time that we're in right now. But I also want to say, I was so privileged and really just honored to work with the people that came together as a part of this task force. Everyone from our students, Zeta was just, thank you, Zeta, fantastic. And to our staff, our community members, everybody was so willing to just share, give their information, and help, coming to the table and helping. I mean, some people, were asked one day and they showed up the very next day, and it was really great. And, we have a lot of work ahead of us. This will not be the easiest of years, right? This will be a challenging year. But I believe as we continue to work together and collaborate, that we will do a really good job. We have great expertise. I'm clear. We have strong staff that really care and want to do a great job. And I think together we will get through this. We will rise to the occasion. We will do what we need to do for our students, and we will manage this issue until we get to the other side. And I think we will do it well. There will be some challenges. We will address those challenges one at a time, and we will work through them. And we just ask the community to be patient with us, and we're going to continue to work together. We're all in this together. And I think we're going to make it to the other side. We'll get there. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you again for your questions too. Yes, go ahead, Kathleen.
Just one, what about OTPT, speech therapy?
Yeah.
How is that going to be addressed?
Yeah. So OT, PT, you know, when kids are in, we certainly will be working with those who will be coming in. Those who are not going to be coming in, we will have to look at their plans, see what's actually needed, and we'll be figuring out what accommodations can be made with and for those students. Some kids may be coming in on those. We talked about some of those kids with more severe disabilities. Some kids we know will need some hand-on supports. So during some of those times, kids who need some of those supports, we'll figure out how do we get them in and how do we support them, basically. Our goal is to make sure that we meet all IEPs in terms of the requirements, support in terms of related services. We want to provide those. So I know that our special ed director and student support services folks are already working on those things to make sure that we have people working with our students who require that. People who can, folks who can do some supports online or virtually, we will be also doing that too. So there are some things, like for example, speech and language. There's some things that can be done virtually online. There's some stretches that you can do from PT online, but those that need to come in for, we'll figure out how do we get them in and we'll take care of those kids.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to you and to the administration and the task force that came together, because this is just a monumental task. You know, like you said, you've been doing this for 10 years, and this is, to have to think about every aspect that you're doing. God bless you, because you guys really have done a good job. So thank you.
And everybody, all the administrators, all of the teachers, all of the folks, everybody in the community, they've been fantastic. And we have a lot of stuff to still do, but thank you all. I just really, I can't say enough how much I really appreciate everything that you all have done. And Karen too. Thank you, Karen. She's been so patient. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you to everybody.
Can I just piggyback on Kathleen? Thank you all. Kudos. Monumental isn't even the right word probably, but thank you all for the time and the effort that you've put in to get our kids back in school.
We're good. Okay, so again, board tomorrow, you'll start to see a lot of stuff online and you'll hear even more information. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that was coming out. Okay. All right, I'm all set. Thank you, Dean.
Would there be any other items for the superintendent's report tonight?
No, that's it for tonight.
Okay. Next will be the consent agenda, minutes of the regular board meeting of July 14th, 2020, special education board report, August 4th, 2020, capital project change order phase 2, Oswego High School annual report for extracurricular activities, Oswego High School's extracurricular activity report for June 2020, Oswego Middle School extracurriculum activity report for June 2020, Oswego Middle School annual report for extracurricular activities, and I would need a motion.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next to Carrie Plass with curriculum. I only have one item for tonight, and it is the 2020-2021 District Comprehension Improvement Plan, that the board approved this plan. The plan is due to being identified as a target district by New York State. Motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then on to personnel with Dr. Sweeney, please.
Hello, everybody. First, professional staff retirement, Kathleen Zaran at Layton School. Whereas Kathleen was employed continuously by the Oswego City School District from September 2005 until October 2020. Whereas Ms. Zaran admirably served the students and staff of the Oswego City School District with her full commitment to her responsibilities as a special education teacher to work in partnership with her fellow employees and with her full service and dedication to the best interests of all the students of our district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that the service of Ms. Zaran was an asset to the students and staff and we express gratitude and sincere appreciation for her 15 years of service. And I'll read B as well, Karen, and then we could maybe put those together.
Yes.
And then I have a second retirement, Lorraine Ketchum at Minetto, whereas Lorraine Ketchum was employed continuously by the Oswego City School District from November 2011 until September 2020. Whereas Ms. Ketchum admirably served the students and staff of our district with her full commitment to her responsibilities as a teaching assistant, to work in partnership with her fellow employees, and with her full service and dedication to the best interests of all students of our district. Now therefore be it resolved that the Oswego City School District hereby recognizes that the service of Ms. Ketchum was an asset to the students and staff of our school district, and we express gratitude and sincere appreciation for her 9 years of service.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll put our professional staff recommendations together. So C is a resignation, Megan Knoll, special ed teacher, KPS. D, we have 2 rescissions of previously appointed folks. This, for our newer members, this does sometimes happen in the summer. Somebody accepts a position with us. They may be interviewing in other districts, and for whatever reason, the other district may be offering a position that's better suited to their family or to their location. So we have Rebecca Kibler, special ed teacher at Layton, and Lauren Miter, special ed teacher at Minetto. E, probationary appointments, Shannon Isham, special education at Layton, and Keegan McSweeney, special education at Minetto. F, regular substitute appointments, Donald Dowd. You know what? Probably, Pam, based on your email, Karen, maybe we should do C and D together in an appointment. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
For C and D, if I could have a motion, please.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then it's convenient, we've got E, the probationary that I just read, and then F, our regular substitutes. Don Dowd, elementary education at Fitzhugh Park. Jacob Herrick, literacy at Fitzhugh Park. Matthew Wexler, English at the high school. And Heather Clark, teaching assistant at the high school. So Karen, could we do E and F together?
Yes. Resolution E through F, if I could have a motion.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need to abstain,
Abstain, Pam?
please. Thank
And
you.
opposed? Thank you.
Okay, so then picking back up, we'll do G, professional staff recommendation, professional development, summer professional development as needed. In the past, typically folks we've hired don't come on payroll until September 1st, but in this circumstances, and Carrie and I had been talking about this for the last couple of years, there's a fair amount of training that we'd like to provide, and we want to offer the opportunity for any of our duly appointed new faculty members to participate in that professional development opportunity and be paid for it as the contract outlines. So that's what the recommendation for G means. H, extra compensatory position recommendation for extended school year. We have a teaching assistant, Karen Fox. We also have a school psychologist to add, Dr. John Garudo. I, extra compensatory OHS class advisors. These are as needed, listed below, freshman, sophomore, junior class co-advisors, and senior class. J, extra compensatory for OHS music as presented. K, extra compensatory OHS after school sports study hall and after school detention as presented. L, extra compensatory team leader, foreign language, Lori Bradway Vega. M, extra compensatory intramurals substitute supervisor, Christina Taylor. And then we'll stop there because then we're getting into our support staff.
So resolution G through M, if I could have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
I'll second.
any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. How are these extra I mean, we're approving the extra comps, but we don't really know what's going to happen with them. You know, with the music, my understanding is that those extra comps are for concerts and that type of thing. And whatever the other one was that we're doing.
Yeah, after school sports study hall and variety.
And
So
yeah, can you just
we have been moving things. Yeah, good question, Kathleen. We'd been moving things along because up until right now, we weren't sure about the true opening of school. I've reached out both to our administrators at the secondary level because it does impact that secondary group primarily, as well as the unit leadership to say, so now that we are rolling the plan out to folks, we likely will have to make some decisions about what can we offer virtually. Music, they're having some good, really robust discussions about what's an opportunity to produce some sort of virtual concert. Is there an opportunity to work towards that using some of the music programming that's available online? We will present some sort of batch rescission in probably September, once we have a good idea of what extra comps, clubs, activities, et cetera, as Dr. Calvin mentioned earlier, that we could offer well, that we could do well online versus the things that we won't be able to because, as you just saw in the plan, we're going to be mostly remote at the secondary level. We won't list everybody's names because then it would get very unwieldy, but we will list the groups and the activities that we can't do.
Okay, so are those when do those teachers receive that payment? Is that at the end of the school year they get those extra comp?
Some are divided out and we would put on hold any that would normally come onto a payroll cycle in September. And then others are paid out at certain times of the year. So again, we'll know what these decisions are before any payroll payments are made for stipends.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's important to point out too that all of these items have the as needed or as needed basis clause, and that always provides the district with an out.
Okay, thank you. I mean, like sports, the coaches last year, in the spring, they were approved, but then, it was
paid, right?
Right, but it doesn't always say as needed, so everybody's just not always aware. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Okay, our next few are support staff recommendations. N is a resignation, Denise Dose, typist, part-time at Minetto. O is a leave of absence for Lance Breitbeck in his senior custodian title as he's serving in a second area. P, probationary appointments, Heather Duran, cook at Fitzhugh Park, Caitlin Isham, food service helper at Fitzhugh Park, and Angela Val, food service helper, also at KPS. At KPS. And Q, support staff recommendation, provisional, Kimberly Patrick, account clerk typist at the Education Center. And this is our first batch of our annual reappointments. So our substitute and temporary employees, we bring the group forward every year for the folks who return our letters of assurance saying that they are coming back in the fall. So that's the list in our teachers, teaching assistants, and others will be at our next meeting. And S, substitute and temporary position rates. Again, during the summer, we bring forward our hourly rates that we establish each school year for our effective September 1st payroll.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed. Next, we'll move to finance, but I have been asked to amend the agenda by Nancy Squires to remove item P from the agenda. If I could get a motion, please.
Move it.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
So wondering why, is there a reason why it's being removed?
Yes, I can address that. It's being removed because that was the bucket of money that Jamie had intended to move around to apply to the purchase of the additional technology, hardware, and Wi-Fi access that Dr. Calvin would like. But with the approval of the transfer that's coming later in the agenda, that bucket of money can be used elsewhere.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed. Next is finance with Nancy Squires.
Okay, and Karen, can we switch those around? Because I know that there's some concerns and questions with A, so that we can discuss the purchase. Am I looking at it at this right, Jim? So that we can discuss the one before we pull the money, before we just, or is it switched around?
I see what you're saying, Kathleen. We're making an assumption that the large budget transfer will be approved before we amend the other one. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah. Did we already approve the amendment?
We did, but I could do another amendment.
Why don't we rescind the amendment or do another amendment to rescind the amendment and then move the order if that's what you'd like?
I'm confused.
I am too.
So we're only talking about B and C right now, I think.
Yeah, Jim, explain.
Correct. I understand. We're talking about changing B and C.
Just switching them?
Yeah, hold on. My pages are out of order. Yes.
Am I looking at the right one?
Well, I can't do a budget. I can't amend the budget until I have the money to amend the budget.
Oh.
That's why they're in this specific order.
Okay, so as long as we can discuss the specifics of C while discussing B, I mean, that would be fine. Whereas, we have two separate votes, but as long as the discussion can encompass both of them, because they're really the same, that would be fine.
Correct. And then if depending on the results of B and C, if you'd like to amend the agenda again before we get to M, you can do that.
Okay.
Okay, but first we're going to start with A. So A is for the board to approve a resolution to waive competitive bidding requirements for items needed for PPE and equipment due to the constraints of COVID-19 as presented.
Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
B is for the board to approve a transfer from the unemployment reserve to the general fund in the amount of $823,000 to purchase hotspots and Chromebooks and Chromebook cases for students to comply with our plan. And then C is for the board to approve. C is for the board to approve a budget amendment to allow us to increase our revenue and also to increase our appropriations into a BOCES line for the amounts that were attached to your board agenda.
Could I have a motion, please? Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Well,
Well,
so
wait a second.
Okay,
I do have a question about the number of Chromebooks that we're looking at. from the memo that was posted on the agenda and that Jamie put out, the numbers are just seem a little off to me. It seems like we're getting more Chromebooks than every student in the district, and the number of employees. So I'm just wondering if we can have some discussion about that. You know, we're talking about the fact that we have 2,300 Chromebooks now. We're looking to purchase another 2,250. You know, that's 4,500, almost 4,600 Chromebooks. We only have 3,700 students. So, you know, for me, that's it's 900 more Chromebooks than we need if we assume every student needs one. And while I think that some students absolutely need them, like was discussed, that we handed out 500 Chromebooks, or at least to 500 households in the spring. We went fully remote in the spring, and we made it work with handing out 500. Now we're looking to hand out one for one, and I'm not sure every student needs one or would even ask for one if it was offered. So it just, the numbers are just a little off to me.
Sure.
So
Go ahead.
I had a conversation with Jamie. We have approximately 3,800 students. There are another 380 teachers, give or take. So that would be 4,180 computers that we would need. He has approximately 2,000 computers. He needs to have another 2,000 or more, because there are computers that we have in the district that are not compatible with our other computers. They were from donations, some are in disrepair, and so he has not done a full inventory on that. So in order to get up and running for the school year so that we can go remote, we were erring on the side of over purchasing the computers. The other issue that we have is we're not even sure whether we can get them all at this time. As we're trying to procure computers, so is everybody else in the state. So we're competing against other school districts, and what we want to make sure is that we have them on hand in time to get up and running for the school year.
Right. Nancy, can I add something too? So I think the other thing that's important is, and Jamie is here, he can certainly help with this, but the other thing too is you want to have a little, you need extra, right, in terms of wiggle room as well too, because so here's what happens. Sometimes kids and sometimes staff too, you know, Chromebooks drop, they fall, things happen, they get, you know, destroyed. So you want to have extras on hand too. Jamie, I know you and I talked about this a little bit. Did you want to add something else besides what Nancy said?
No, I think as we look at our overall number, especially with concern Jim expressed, there's also the idea that it depends on what certain TAs will be doing. So our faculty number, the amount that we need might go up for that. But also out of the spring sign-outs, we're still trying to recuperate some of those devices. We're still missing 55 of them that we've sent numerous notifications home. We've mailed letters home. We're still trying to get in touch with some families to get some devices back. And what Nancy said about our inventory, we have them inventoried, but what she was alluding to was the idea that some of them we have back. We haven't gone through every single one yet, but some of them, a charger port is broke. We can't use that anymore. Some of the models she mentioned that were, you know, not compatible, they are older. Do they power on? Yes, but they're very old and sluggish for our students to use. And if we're going pure virtual learning, I would feel more comfortable getting them a more modern device that's not 7 years old.
Jamie, if you have more than one student in a household and they're both going to be on at the same time, so one household may need 2 or 3.
Correct.
Am I correct in that?
Yes. Actually, talking with Dr. Calvin, the plan that we are doing for reopening, what we'd like to do, we'd like to have enough so that every single student, so if there was a family with 5 students, we want to be able to give them 5 devices to do their work. In the spring, we did not have the devices or the budget to purchase more to give one to every student. And what we'd like to do is kind of correct that moving forward so that a family with 4 children at home doesn't have to share one device and try to strive and find the time and schedule when they can do work.
Yeah, and I talked to a community member, she's got 6 kids, and they were given one device, and it was difficult. So they absolutely, families like that. So I understand the 1-to-1 ratio. And when we handed them out, I mean, I was thinking to myself, we're not going to get them all back, and get them all back in good shape either. So
Yep. And then the other part of the money, besides the devices, were the mobile hotspots, obviously, to help out some families that didn't have internet access in the spring.
Yeah, Jamie, can you explain that service? Because I also have several friends who live in areas where their service is awful. How does that work?
How does what work? The mobile hotspots?
Yes.
Well, we've talked to several different companies that offer them. And honestly, it looked like Verizon had the best coverage. So looking at that, we're trying to do something that would work the best for our families. I know that one company we looked at just didn't have coverage. We got a demo device and it didn't have any coverage at all. So we're going to do the best that we can, providing devices out to families that don't have internet. But ultimately, there will be some limitations on, is there any type of cell coverage nearby?
So Jamie, you talked about teachers needing more, and I think the number was 400 something that was said. Are there teachers and professional staff, psychologists, are they not already issued a district laptop?
They are not. They're issued as they request them.
Right.
So we do have.
Not everybody gets one on day one.
Right. If they need one, they request one and we sign them out one.
Right.
Okay. Well, see, to me, part of this is going along that same philosophy. If a student or a family, even if it's a family of 6 requests 6, we give 6. But if a family requests none, to just give it to them, and the chances, as Kathleen said, they may not be coming back. I don't know. It seems unsettling to me, just to give them regardless of whether they need it or not.
So just, can I say something? It's not giving them it, like we're loaning it, first of all.
Sure.
Right? We're loaning them, right? We're just
I get that.
But some families do have their own devices, but as last year we got going with a level of instruction, but this year you're going to see that level ramped up a little bit more, right? And so as the learning expectations are ramping up, sometimes people are going to need a device that's a little bit more stronger, that does a little bit more. We had some people that were using, their iPads at home. Some were using their own computers. Some were using their telephone, So, but now as expectations are rising, my thought is that you're going to probably see people need a little bit more, and they're going to need, a device loaned to them. So here's the thing, the guidance says we need to provide these devices for every student who requests them or needs one, and for our staff as well. So that's pretty much kind of what we're doing. Again, so Jim, great feedback. But again, we're not giving them away. So we want the public who's watching this to know, if you borrowed one, we want you to give it back. But we'll loan it to you, and we're just trying to make sure we have more than enough. We don't know how long this will go for, and we don't know what will happen when some of these devices go out. I've been in situations, I implemented one-to-one technology in several districts, and sometimes they all come back with no problem. Sometimes the students have problems. Sometimes the staff have more difficulty and drop them by mistake. But that happens. And what we've got to be able to do is either fix them right away or have another one that we can hand and keep moving, because the kids just cannot be off for long periods of time. We've got to keep this moving. So that's why we tried to get more than enough to make sure we'll be okay for not only now, but actually in the next year, right? We should be good. And it's costly, but keep in mind too, you're also getting a lot of this back because it's aided BOCES too, just as a reminder for the board too. So I hope I was able to respond to some of your concerns, Jim.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I think please elaborate a little bit more about the return for BOCES, because not only for board members, but for the public who's watching, when we're talking about spending this money through BOCES, there's a return, what type of return are we talking about?
Right. So our return rate, Nancy, our approximate return rate?
It's in the high 70s.
So you get a percentage back of whatever you spend through BOCES, right? So you spend a certain, $100, you get 70% of that back in this particular district, right? So the best thing to do when you need to, if you're able to procure some things through BOCES or services through BOCES or staffing through BOCES, wherever you possibly can, it's a good thing because it helps the district to be able to get back some of what it expends out, right? Always a good thing, I think, for taxpayers.
Right. The only thing that will not be going through BOCES, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, is the hotspots, because that is a service through Verizon.
Jamie,
I think James frozen.
No, you're correct. You're correct.
There.
We have a local contract already that we have several district emergency cell phones through. So we'd add those hotspots to our current Verizon contract.
I have a question. Jamie, you mentioned that there are spots that, we know that there's just no cell coverage. So like the hotspot's not going to work. What are we going to do for those families? Are we going to bring them into school where they have the access to remote? How are we going to help them?
I think that's something we'll have to take on a case-by-case basis. I know that when we looked at it, we looked at trying to get the best coverage hotspots that we could for our area. And after looking at a lot of the providers, Verizon was the best coverage. Now, when it comes to those specific families, if they don't have coverage, obviously we are going to do what we can and what we need to make sure we provide that kid an education.
Jamie, will you be doing your inventory? Will you have time and to be able to go through, do a solid inventory of what we have, what's functional, and what we're adding in, so we know, what that is as we move forward?
Yes, I've had staff working on that for the past couple of weeks. As they come in, we're going through them. We're trying to space them out and get things all arranged and organized for the fall.
So along the lines of what Tom was just saying there, as if we allocate all of this money right now, as you continue to do your inventory, it may be that you need 100 or 200 less or something along that lines. As long as it's not more than is appropriated, would you still be able to then adjust and be able to purchase less?
Well, I can answer this. So what we want to do is make sure that we have computers in the hands of students when they come in. So if Jamie knows he has 2,000 computers right now on hand, and say he's not sure about the ones that don't work or anything else, we're going to be buying these computers in bunches, and we're not even sure whether we can get them all. So when we order them, Jamie's staff is going to continually inventory, look to see what has to be repaired, look to see what he can have fixed, or whether or not we need a whole new unit. He is going to be assessing that all the time. So if we don't need the full $823,000 in the transfer, then he won't spend it. But right now, we want to make sure that in the worst case scenario, we have the money in order to purchase what we need.
Great, thanks, Nancy. That's exactly what I was looking for. The fact that we buy it in chunks. So we buy a chunk now to say 1 for 1, close to 1 for 1 for every student. And if we find out we need less, then we may not have to buy another chunk later.
That's correct, Jim.
Great. Thank you very much.
Could that
You're welcome.
Could that money be allocated for other purposes within Jamie's area then?
Really,
Or is it specifically assigned to this when we transfer it?
It's specifically assigned to these line items.
Right.
So
Okay.
what we could do is, even though it's assigned to these line items, if Jamie finds out he doesn't need as much equipment, but maybe he needs something else in his department, then we could transfer it out of the equipment budget into other lines.
Got
And
it.
that would come to the board as well.
Okay, great.
Great.
Any other questions? For resolution B and C? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
D is for the board to approve as bond counsel, Bond Chenick and King. This is carryover work that they started for us last year on our bonding for the capital project. And
Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
E is the telecommunication contract with OC and BOCES. I brought this to you at the last meeting, but there was a change from BOCES. They had sent me the wrong agreement to bring to the board, and then they sent, after we signed it and sent it back, they sent a revised one. Instead, the only change is instead of a 5-year contract, it's a 3-year contract. So I wanted to bring that forward for revision.
Motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And if the board would approve, I would like to lump F through N.
Please.
These are all of our facilities maintenance contracts, and these come up annually.
Could I have a motion, please, through resolution F through N?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
A second.
Lisa? Oop, Tom? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And moving right along, we're now on O. O is our annual agreement with the group management services. This is for unemployment cost control in the amount of $2,204.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Move it.
A second.
Who was second?
I'll second.
Tom? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oops, sorry. P is for the grant from the Richard S. Shinneman Foundation, and this is for the Leader in Me program at Fitchie Park School in the amount of $22,006.
Motion?
I'll make the
Move
motion.
it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you to the Richard Shinneman Foundation once again for sponsoring the Leader in Me program.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Q is for the board to approve an error that was found on the AIA document for Construction Associates. I had brought it forward before, but as my staff were looking through it, they found the error, and we actually owe them $5,325. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. $5,335.05 more on their contract, so that their total contract for phase 3 was $743,800.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And R is for a change order for contaminated soil remediation. I'll explain a little about this. That was explained at the facilities committee. Over where the old Wilbur Field is, as they dug down, they noticed that there was some suspicious soil. They had it tested. It was petroleum based. And this is to remediate it up to $85,000. What they're going to do is they're going to dig up the soil, put it on tarps, hopefully to see if it will dry out. They're going to test it again. And then we have to pay by cubic yard to have it disposed of appropriately. So that is why the price is so high on this. It was just a found condition, and if for people that are part of the community, we know that this was all built on an old dump site. So no one knew it was there, and until we started to actually grade the field, that's when it was found.
Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just real quick, from the document that's attached, I'm just wondering where the $85,000 up to comes from. Again, just looking at the line items.
Yeah, so Jim, the way it was explained to me is they cannot provide you an actual cost of what it's going to take to remediate the soil. And they're thinking because of the truck weight, that's how they just estimate it could be double the cost of what they had expected. So originally, if all of the soil was dry, they could say it was $35,000. But as an estimate, because the soil is still wet and compacted like that, they're thinking that it could go up to $85,000. So it could be less. We're hoping it's much less, but we won't know until it actually dries out and they actually take it to the site for disposal.
Great,
And
thank you.
it was also a not to exceed price. I think, wasn't Nancy, I believe that by cubic yard, it was 1.8 times for weight ton per cubic yard. And there's 500 cubic yards. And so that's how they figured out the weight and what the removal would be on it. And it was also the idea that they didn't know how much they'd have to actually excavate. Because one of the questions I asked was, how much are we responsible for? How far do we have to go relative to the DEC and environmentally? And they said what they're looking at seems to be fairly well contained, and they don't think it should exceed that. But this was
And just, right, and I'm sorry, Tom, just as an aside, what they're going to do is they're going to ask for all the truck tickets to verify weight so that we can confirm exactly how much it's going to cost at the end. But this is just a ballpark.
I have a question. I didn't realize it was a dump previously. Is it a designated brownfield or area that might be subject to, there are like federal grants we could get to help pay for remediation?
I don't have the answer to that, Lisa. I don't know.
That would be a Craig question. I think Craig Daly. My assumption, Lisa, would be that they would have thought through that and with everything they had looked at originally with the DEC and every element of it. But it's a great question, and we should, move that over to Craig and see.
Right. The only issue that we have right now is in looking at that, knowing that we apply for grants, it might take a long time to get any kind of funding for that. And they have to really start moving ahead in order to keep the project going.
Right. And it's contaminated soil.
Reimburse.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, Mathis, go ahead.
No. I was saying, and it's contaminated soil. So, so we need to get it moving. But great point. And Lisa was saying, hey, if there's a way to get reimbursement, I get it. It's great. Good question.
Craig Daly must be watching our meeting because he just texted me that it is not a brownfield.
You rock, Craig Daly.
I guess that's a good thing in the long run.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is the student representative discussion, and Zita Olson is with us, and I wanted to introduce her to the board tonight.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. This is your welcome. This is your opportunity during each meeting to say anything that you'd like to. You can share about what's going on in student life and any input that you have.
I don't have anything to mention at the moment besides thank you for having a student representative to listen to on the board.
Glad you're here.
Thank you. Next is the capital project updates. Would there be any updates tonight?
I will just go and sketch out what we did this past week, some of the highlights. One, we'll get to the field last, but some of the stuff that people don't see that are going on that are at completion or close to it is the roof at Fitzhugh Park is, if not finished up this week, close to being finished this week. And they're moving on to Kingsford, where they're doing the tear off and prep work, and they've done the staging there. And so it'll be a couple more weeks before that's finished out. Over at Layton School, again, the areas you don't see, but the new classrooms and the new construction that's happening over there, they've got the drywall. They're finishing up this week. They're going to start doing the finishes in there. They have the tile in that area as well, prepped, and I believe they're going to start that Wednesday of this week. At the high school interior, the floors in the locker room, they're doing the infill on that, supposed to be done also by tomorrow, and all the overhead work they're doing in there, which is a lot of electrical or plumbing, I think. Fire alarm is being finished up, and also panel locations are coordinated and confirmed with the fire alarm. Should be done actually, I believe, by today. And then you get on to the site work at the for the field. It should be today, unless it got rained off. I don't know. Did the trucks start coming in today, Dean? No. Okay. So supposedly
No, they didn't, because we believe the turf construction has been pushed back a little bit.
Has it been?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then there goes my update there. But the granite curbing is completed. Stone under the field is completed. Perimeter anchor wall completed this week all around the main field. Sidewalks are continuing to be done all the way around there. And the bleachers are scheduled for delivery on the 17th of this month. And so evidently the turf has been pushed back a little bit that I wasn't aware of, but that should be, we're close to that and having that. I think if you've seen the block work on the two buildings down there, both of the changing rooms, the locker rooms on the south building, and then the concessions and restrooms on the north building are going up fairly rapidly. So it's visible to everybody now. I think a lot of people are seeing it start to take shape. And again, that's the visible part of it, but a lot of the individual school work is also being completed that people don't see. So that's my update.
Next is items from the board. Would any board members have any items tonight? Okay. Next is adjournment. If I could have a motion for adjournment.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second that enthusiastic.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're all cramped up here.
You may move to adjournment.